The Department of Veterans Affairs has been slammed after News Corp revealed it is spending millions of dollars to fight veterans' compensation claims. Since 2016, the department has spent more than $15 million of taxpayer money to push back against veterans seeking compensation for trauma and injury. Joining me now to discuss is military lawyer and former Army officer Glenn Kolomeitz. Good morning to you, Glenn. Thanks very much for your time this morning. It's quite horrific when you think about this. What sort of conditions, can you elaborate on that, on what, soldiers, vets come back with that you have to fight?
The vast majority of cases that I represented veterans in front of the AAT were PTSD and related comorbidities, so mental health conditions. But more often than not, there are physical injuries as well as mental injuries. So it's quite a broad spectrum of conditions, but in my experience, PTSD appears to be the more prevalent, which ends up being fought in front of the AAT or the federal court.
And all they want is compensation payouts, just reasonable payouts for them to be able to manage that condition that presumably they sustained while fighting for Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. It's akin to workplace injuries outside in the civilian sector. These people can't work anymore, so they're entitled to compensation or pensions or some financial and medical support to get on with their lives post-operational or post-service.
What is it like for you when you have to speak to these people to tell them that it's unlikely that that you won't be able to get them any money because of the tough stance that the government is taking?
Look, I was accused of taking up every fight and not triaging, I suppose. But I did do a review of all these cases in advance to make sure there was reasonable prospect of success. And the vast majority of cases, to my view, there was reasonable prospect of success. Having lost a number of them, and not all of them, it's probably 50-50 balance, but having lost about half of them, it was very difficult explaining to these people that look, we've lost it. It was quite traumatic for many of these younger, predominantly younger veterans to hear that from me, to the point that often I would offer them the chance to take it up on appeal to the federal court, and more often than not they would say no, that they couldn't handle any more of that fight.
So do you think it's common knowledge out there amongst the taxpayers that they know that they're basically fighting against our own heroes, shall we say, Australians who go overseas to fight for liberty, to fight for freedom?
I think the taxpayer would be fully aware that the department, DVA, and the various arms of the department do fight against the claims of veterans. I don't think the taxpayer would be fully aware of the extent to which the department funds that, and the lengths to which some of these law firms briefed by the department go to refute these claims.
How have your conversations gone with the government? Because I think I was reading yesterday that Darren Chester doesn't want to push ahead with the Royal Commission because it would cost too much money.
Look, I've spoken with staffers. I'm yet to speak with the Minister about a Royal Commission. I have a particularly strong view about the need for a Royal Commission, indeed about the terms of reference of a Royal Commission. So I'm quite dug into that space. I'm yet to speak with the Minister. I hope to speak with the Secretary, Liz Cosson, soon. I respect Liz Cosson. I think she has made some changes at the process level, but I do want to speak to the Minister.
Give me an idea of can you isolate one story? Because I was listening to an interview that you did yesterday where you talked about a female soldier who was sexually assaulted in Kuwait and had a lot of problems because of that and couldn't get any compensation in return.
As a young Air Force lady, she was sexually assaulted, as you say, in Kuwait whilst on deployment. The Air Force conducted one of their nothing-to-see-here internal inquiries into that. But at the AAT, so she lodged claims. The claims were rejected by the department. The Administrative Appeals Tribunal essentially accepted the fact that the sexual assault took place. And the department didn't refute that, didn't fight against that.
And that was within her own army, right?
Her own Air Force, her own Defence Force, that's right. At the appeal, the department argued that her PTSD, her mental health conditions, predated her entry to the RAF. So they brought in their hired gun psychiatrist, one of these professional experts, to fight tooth and nail with this battery of lawyers against this young lady's case. Now, this was my first AAT appeal out of the regular army as a recently active private barrister.
We've come so far since World War II, haven't we, with our returning vets when it comes to mental illness. We understand so much more about that from what people experience in the battlefield, physical or mental problems that they sustain, yet the government continues to push back against that. Why is there such hypocrisy when it comes to that, our serving members?
Well, I think the government, to be fair, acknowledges the existence or the prevalence of PTSD and mental health conditions. I don't think they acknowledge the extent of it. They're relying on very low figures on a pie chart. I believe it's much greater than that. The issue is the amount of money being spent and the amount of time and effort going into fighting these claims, and not all claims, of course, but fighting a lot of these claims, it defies logic. And as we've seen in recent reporting, the sheer amount of money that could be going to tangible programs, it cost a hell of a lot less.
It seems like that $15 million that taxpayers spent on lawyers would have been better off just going to those vets with real problems.
Absolutely right, or to programs, tangible programs to help those vets. I know of one program, a homeless veterans program, which had the razor taken to it recently, and it's much, much less than that sort of amount of money, which could have been funded, still funded, out of some of that $15 million.
Glenn Collum, it's a lot of tough work that you're doing, and good luck pressing forward. The Royal Commission is what's needed.
Thanks,
Thank
mate.
you very much, Glenn. Well, good luck with that.